a tale of two peoples separated by time and geography, yet bound by a shared struggle against oppression. The jarring images flash across the screen, a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty and division. On one side, the black and white ghosts of Sharpeville, South Africa, gunned down by their own government in 1960. On the other, the all-too-familiar scenes from Gaza in 2018, where Palestinian protesters faced the might of Israeli forces. The montage shifts, revealing the stark physical embodiment of segregation. Towering walls topped with barbed wire slice through the landscape. These are not ancient relics, but modern-day testaments to an enduring ideology. In the West Bank, the concrete barrier snakes through Palestinian land, a constant reminder of confinement. In Cape Town, a faded photograph from the Apartheid era shows a similar barrier, once separating black and white communities. Two distinct struggles, separated by decades, yet united by an unsettling truth. The tactics of control, the language of division, the machinery of oppression, all bear an uncanny resemblance. It begs the question, did apartheid truly end in 1994? Or did it simply find a new home, a new target, a new generation to oppress? Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Nelson Mandela's words, spoken with quiet conviction, echo through the years, a potent reminder of the interconnectedness of struggles for justice. Mandela, the icon of South Africa's liberation movement, recognized the shared plight of the Palestinian people long before it became a mainstream conversation. Mandela's journey, from political prisoner to president, was one forged in the fires of resistance. He understood that oppression anywhere is a threat to freedom everywhere. His words were not merely a statement of solidarity, but a call to action, a recognition that the fight against apartheid did not end with the dismantling of South Africa's racist regime. The distance between South Africa and Palestine may seem vast, but the threads of history weave a complex and interconnected tapestry. The struggle against injustice transcends borders, languages, and cultures. Mandela's legacy serves as a powerful reminder that the fight for freedom is a global one, requiring unwavering solidarity and a refusal to be silent in the face of oppression. Apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination, was not merely a South African phenomenon. It was a product of colonialism, a global system designed to maintain power and privilege for a select few. While the world celebrated the fall of apartheid in South Africa, the seeds of this insidious ideology had already been sown elsewhere. The dismantling of apartheid in South Africa was a testament to the power of collective action, of international pressure, of the unwavering spirit of those who refused to be defined by the color of their skin. It was a victory hard won, a beacon of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness. But the fight was far from over. While the world celebrated the triumph over apartheid in South Africa, a more insidious form of the same ideology was taking root in Palestine. Fueled by political expediency, economic interests, and a deeply ingrained sense of exceptionalism, the Israeli government implemented policies and practices eerily reminiscent of South Africa's dark past. The echoes of Sharpeville reverberate through the streets of Gaza, where Palestinian children, armed with stones and the unwavering belief in their right to exist, face down the might of Israeli military forces. The images are strikingly similar, a stark reminder that the tactics of oppression remain tragically consistent, regardless of time or place. Homes bulldozed, families displaced, lives shattered. The brutal realities of apartheid's legacy live on. In Gaza, Palestinian families huddle amidst the rubble of their demolished homes, victims of a system that denies their right to exist. In South Africa, the scars of forced removals, a brutal tactic of the apartheid regime, are still visible on the landscape and in the hearts of those who were uprooted from their homes. The struggle for freedom, for dignity, for the right to self-determination, unites the Palestinian and South African experiences. It is a struggle against a system that seeks to dehumanize, to control, to erase the very essence of a people. But from the ashes of oppression, hope arises. Laws of division, the legal architecture of apartheid, a chillingly similar legal framework designed to entrench racial hierarchies. In South Africa, driven by white supremacy, In Israel, laws systematically disadvantage Palestinians. The tools of oppression have evolved, but principles remain familiar. In apartheid South Africa, laws restricted Black South Africans. In Israel-Palestine, a similar system of control exists. The fight for justice is far from over. Separate and unequal. The Population Registration Act and its legacy. The Population Registration Act of 1950 mandated racial categorization, creating a framework for segregation. It determined where people could live, work, and travel. The act institutionalized racism, stripping millions of their rights. Its legacy casts a long shadow over South Africa. The nation-state law codifying discrimination in the 21st century. In 2018, the Israeli Knesset passed the nation-state law, widely condemned as codifying discrimination against non-Jewish citizens. This law defines Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people, creating a two-tiered system of citizenship. It has been seen as a dangerous escalation of discriminatory policies, cementing apartheid in Israel-Palestine. Condemned by Palestinian citizens as a blatant attack on their rights, relegating them to second-class status. The parallels between the Population Registration Act and the nation-state law are stark and troubling. Both laws entrench the dominance of one group over another through legal means, representing a dangerous erosion of democratic values and an assault on equality and justice. Section 4. Maps of oppression, Bantustans, and fragmented territories. Maps can serve as stark illustrations of injustice. In apartheid South Africa and present-day Israel-Palestine, maps tell a story of land dispossession and control. The Bantustan system and the division of the West Bank into areas A, B, and C are examples of cartography as a tool of oppression. These maps remind us of the human cost of discriminatory policies and the need for justice and equality. Section 5. The Architects of Apartheid, a Legacy of Collaboration. The architects of apartheid were not solely confined to South Africa's borders. The racist regime found willing collaborators on the international stage. Among these collaborators, Israel played a particularly troubling role. Despite international condemnation, Israel maintained close military and economic ties with the apartheid regime. Israel supplied South Africa with weapons, technology, and training. The collaboration extended to trade and economic cooperation. This collaboration helped sustain apartheid and contributed to the suffering of millions. Section 1. Troubled Waters. The genesis of a controversial alliance. The seeds of the unholy alliance between apartheid South Africa and Israel were sown in the turbulent waters of the Cold War. Both countries, facing international isolation and condemnation, found common cause in their shared pariah status. Israel offered South Africa a lifeline of weapons, technology, and diplomatic support. The architects of this alliance, like Hendrik Verwoerd and David Ben-Gurion, saw the world through a similar lens. Both believed in the inherent superiority of their respective groups and viewed the world as hostile. This shared worldview laid the foundation for a relationship with devastating consequences. Section 2. Shared Enemies, Shared Tactics, Counterinsurgency, and Population Control. Facing growing resistance movements, both apartheid South Africa and Israel sought to maintain control through a combination of brute force and sophisticated tactics of population control. They shared intelligence, exchanged military advisors, and adopted similar strategies for suppressing dissent and quelling uprisings. The battlefields may have been different, but the enemies, in their eyes, were the same: liberation movements fighting for freedom and equality. Israel, with its experience in battling Palestinian resistance, offered valuable lessons in counterinsurgency, surveillance, and targeted assassinations. South Africa, in turn, provided a testing ground for Israeli-made weapons and crowd control techniques. The two countries developed a chillingly symbiotic relationship, each learning from the other's brutality and refining their methods of repression. The tactics employed by both regimes were strikingly similar. Checkpoints, pass laws, and curfews were used to restrict the movement of Black South Africans and Palestinians, confining them to segregated areas and limiting their access to education, employment, and basic services. Torture, detention without trial, and extrajudicial killings were commonplace, used to instill fear and silence dissent. The human cost of this collaboration, measured in shattered lives, broken families, and stolen futures, is immeasurable. Section 3. The Arms Bazaar, Fueling Apartheid's Military Machine. The most tangible and controversial aspect of the Israel-South Africa alliance was the flourishing arms trade between the two countries. Despite international sanctions and widespread condemnation, Israel became a major supplier of weapons to the apartheid regime, providing the tools used to enforce segregation, crush dissent, and wage war against neighboring countries. The range of weaponry supplied by Israel was vast and sophisticated, encompassing everything from small arms and ammunition to tanks, artillery, and fighter jets. Israeli companies, often with the tacit or explicit approval of their government, profited handsomely from this trade, their bottom lines fattened by the blood of apartheid's victims. This arms trade, shrouded in secrecy and often disguised through front companies and clandestine deals, flew in the face of international law and morality. It exposed the hypocrisy of Israel's claims to be a haven for human rights, while simultaneously arming a regime responsible for some of the most egregious violations of human dignity in modern history. The legacy of this arms trade continues to cast a long shadow over Israel's relations with the world, a stark reminder of the dangers of prioritizing profit over principle. Section 4. Beyond Weapons, the Exchange of Ideas and Expertise. The collaboration between apartheid South Africa and Israel extended far beyond the mere transfer of weapons. It encompassed a deep and multifaceted exchange of ideas, expertise, and personnel, encompassing areas like intelligence gathering, propaganda, and social engineering. Both regimes, facing similar challenges and sharing a common enemy in the form of liberation movements, sought to learn from each other's successes and failures. Israeli advisors, schooled in the art of counterinsurgency and psychological warfare, shared their knowledge with their South African counterparts. They provided training in interrogation techniques, surveillance methods, and strategies for infiltrating and disrupting anti-apartheid organizations. This exchange of dark knowledge helped to refine the methods of repression employed by both regimes, making them more efficient and more ruthless. The collaboration also extended to the realm of social control. South Africa's system of racial classification and segregation, enshrined in the Population Registration Act and other discriminatory laws, found a chilling echo in Israel's policies towards Palestinians. The two countries exchanged information on methods of population control, land confiscation, and the creation of segregated living spaces. This exchange of ideas and expertise, often conducted in secret and hidden from the public eye, reveals the depth and breadth of the collaboration between these two regimes, united in their determination to maintain their grip on power at any cost. Section 5. A Legacy of Shame, Unveiling the Depth of Collaboration. The full extent of the collaboration between apartheid South Africa and Israel remains shrouded in secrecy. Journalists, historians, and activists have revealed a deep and damning relationship. These revelations have sparked global outrage and condemnation. Icons like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu have condemned Israel's role. The legacy of this alliance continues to haunt both countries. The struggle for justice and equality continues globally. Section 1. Checkpoints. A landscape of humiliation and control. The checkpoint, a ubiquitous symbol of oppression, a stark reminder of the daily humiliations and indignities endured under apartheid regimes. In both South Africa and Israel-Palestine, checkpoints have served as a key tool for controlling the movement of those deemed undesirable, transforming once open landscapes into sites of fear, frustration, and dehumanization. For Black South Africans during apartheid, checkpoints were a constant presence, a suffocating reminder of their second-class status. They were forced to produce passbooks on demand, their movements meticulously monitored and restricted. Checkpoints could mean the difference between reaching a job, visiting family, or being arbitrarily detained, harassed, or worse. Today, in the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip, Palestinians navigate a similar landscape of control. Checkpoints, manned by heavily armed Israeli soldiers, punctuate their daily lives, turning even short journeys into unpredictable ordeals. The wait times can stretch for hours, with no guarantee of passage disrupting work, education, and family life. The psychological impact of checkpoints is profound. The constant sense of being watched, judged, and controlled erodes dignity and fosters resentment. Checkpoints are not merely physical barriers, they are psychological instruments of oppression, designed to instill fear, compliance, and a sense of powerlessness. Section 2. The pass system, restricting movement, denying freedom. Central to the machinery of apartheid in both South Africa and Israel-Palestine was the insidious pass system, a bureaucratic tool used to control and restrict the movement of the oppressed population. These documents, whether called passbooks, permits, or ID cards, served as constant reminders of the denial of basic freedoms. In apartheid South Africa, Black people were required to carry passbooks at all times. These documents dictated where they could live, work, and travel. Failure to produce a passbook on demand could result in arrest, detention, or even deportation to overcrowded and impoverished homelands. The pass system was a cornerstone of the apartheid regime, designed to segregate, control, and exploit Black labor. While South Africa dismantled its pass laws with the end of apartheid, the Palestinian experience under Israeli occupation tells a different story. Various permit systems restrict Palestinian movement within the occupied territories and into Israel. These permits are difficult to obtain, arbitrarily revoked, and subject to a complex web of regulations, effectively denying Palestinians freedom of movement. The pass system, in its various forms, represents a blatant disregard for fundamental human rights. It is a tool of control that seeks to confine, segregate, and subjugate entire populations, denying them the basic dignity of free movement. Section 3. Bulldozers at dawn, demolitions and the displacement of lives. The roar of engines, the crash of concrete, the dust settling on shattered lives. The demolition of homes leaves a trail of displacement, trauma, and despair. Families uprooted, communities torn apart, and a landscape scarred by the violence of dispossession. In the occupied West Bank, Palestinian homes are demolished by Israeli authorities, often under the pretext of lacking building permits. These demolitions displace families, destroy livelihoods, and entrench control over land and resources. Section 4. Urban warfare, the architecture of segregation and control. Cities, with their complex social fabric and competing claims, have been key battlegrounds in the struggle against apartheid. Both South Africa and Israel have deployed urban planning as a weapon, using architecture, zoning laws, and infrastructure projects to entrench segregation, control movement, and maintain the dominance of one group over another. Apartheid South Africa was a meticulously planned system of racial segregation, with cities carved up into rigidly defined areas for whites, Indians, coloreds, and blacks. Black townships, located on the outskirts of cities, were characterized by overcrowding, inadequate housing, and a lack of basic services. This spatial engineering, enshrined in laws like the Group Areas Act, was designed to keep racial groups separate and unequal. In the occupied West Bank, Israel's settlement enterprise, deemed illegal under international law, has reshaped the urban landscape, creating a system of segregated roads, checkpoints, and walls that restrict Palestinian movement and fragment their communities. This architecture of control serves to entrench Israeli dominance and undermine the viability of a future Palestinian state. The use of urban planning as a tool of oppression highlights the insidious nature of apartheid, how it permeates not just laws and institutions, but the very fabric of the built environment. Section 5. Surveillance and the Panopticon, the invisible cage of apartheid. In the dystopian world of apartheid, control extends beyond physical barriers and checkpoints, seeping into the very air citizens breathe. Both South Africa and Israel have perfected the art of surveillance, creating a pervasive atmosphere of fear and paranoia where every move is watched, recorded, and analyzed. Under apartheid, South Africa became a laboratory for surveillance technologies. The government infiltrated liberation movements, tapped phone lines, intercepted mail, and deployed a vast network of informants. Black South Africans lived under the constant shadow of suspicion, never knowing who to trust or when their words might be used against them. Today, Israel deploys some of the world's most sophisticated surveillance technologies in the occupied Palestinian territories. Facial recognition software, drones, and phone tracking devices are used to monitor Palestinian movements, map their social networks, and identify potential threats. This invasive surveillance apparatus creates a chilling effect on Palestinian civil society, stifling dissent and eroding privacy. The panopticon of apartheid, whether built with concrete walls or invisible digital fences, seeks to control not just bodies but minds as well, creating a climate of self-censorship and fear that permeates every aspect of life. Economic strangulation, denying opportunity, enforcing dependence. Apartheid is not just a system of political and social control, it is also a system of economic exploitation. Both South Africa and Israel have used their power to stifle economic development, deny opportunities, and enforce dependence, ensuring that the oppressed population remains impoverished and reliant on the whims of their oppressors. Under apartheid, Black South Africans were systematically denied access to quality education, land ownership, and business opportunities. The government enacted laws and regulations that favored white businesses, forcing Black entrepreneurs to operate in the shadows of the formal economy. This deliberate strangulation of Black economic potential ensured a steady supply of cheap labor for white-owned businesses and industries. In the occupied Palestinian territories, Israel's control over borders, resources, and movement severely restricts Palestinian economic development. The construction of settlements, bypass roads, and the separation barrier fragments the Palestinian economy, isolates Palestinian businesses, and makes it nearly impossible for them to compete on an even playing field. This economic strangulation is a key tactic of apartheid, ensuring that the oppressed population remains dependent, impoverished, and unable to challenge the status quo. It is a system designed to perpetuate inequality and maintain the dominance of one group over another. A legacy of defiance from Sharpeville to Soweto and beyond. The history of apartheid is a testament to the indomitable spirit of resistance. From the Sharpeville massacre in 1960 to the Soweto uprising of 1976, the fight for freedom was marked by courage and sacrifice. The resistance took many forms, from the underground activism of the ANC to the mass mobilizations of trade unions and student groups. Leaders like Nelson Mandela inspired millions, while countless others risked their lives in the struggle for liberation. The spirit of June 16th, youth rising against apartheid. June 16, 1976, dawned like any other winter day in Soweto, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. The apartheid government decreed that Afrikaans be used in Black schools. Thousands of students poured out of their schools, demanding the right to learn in their own languages. They marched peacefully, singing freedom songs. Police opened fire, killing hundreds and injuring thousands. Hector Peterson became a martyr of the uprising. The Soweto uprising marked a turning point in the struggle against apartheid. It inspired a new generation of activists and galvanized international condemnation. The spirit of June 16th continues to inspire struggles for freedom and equality around the world. Section 3. BDS, a global movement for Palestinian rights. Inspired by the anti-apartheid campaign in South Africa, the BDS movement emerged as a tool for Palestinian solidarity. Launched in 2005, BDS calls for a non-violent global campaign to pressure Israel to respect Palestinian rights. The movement has three main goals: ending the occupation, recognizing refugee rights, and ensuring equality. It uses tactics like boycotts, divestment, and sanctions. BDS has gained traction among students, academics, and artists. Supported by figures like Desmond Tutu and Noam Chomsky, it faces opposition from Israel and its supporters. BDS insists it targets policies, not people, sparking global debate on resistance and justice. Section 4. Lawfare and the International Court of Justice, holding apartheid accountable. In the fight against apartheid, both in South Africa and in Israel-Palestine, the courtroom has become a crucial battleground. Lawfare, the use of legal mechanisms to achieve political objectives, has emerged as a key tactic for holding apartheid regimes accountable, challenging discriminatory laws, and seeking redress for victims of human rights violations. South Africa's anti-apartheid movement made strategic use of lawfare, challenging the legitimacy of apartheid laws and exposing the brutality of the regime to the world. Lawyers like Bram Fischer, Joel Joffe, and George Bizos risked their careers and lives defending political prisoners, including Nelson Mandela, and challenging the very foundations of apartheid law. In the case of Israel-Palestine, Palestinian activists and their allies have turned to international courts, including the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, to seek justice for victims of the occupation, challenge the legality of settlements, and hold Israeli officials accountable for war crimes. The use of lawfare in the struggle against apartheid highlights the importance of international law and human rights norms in holding states accountable for their actions. While the wheels of justice may turn slowly, the pursuit of justice through legal channels remains a powerful tool for challenging impunity and seeking redress for victims of oppression. Section 5. Cultural resistance, music, art, and the power of storytelling. Art gives voice to the voiceless and illuminates the path towards justice. In South Africa and Palestine, cultural resistance challenges apartheid and fosters unity. Music has been a potent weapon against apartheid. From Miriam Makeba to Hugh Masekela, music provided solace and inspiration. It united people across racial and social divides. Section 6. Solidarity across borders, a shared struggle for justice. The struggle against apartheid, whether in South Africa or in Palestine, has never been confined to geographical boundaries. It is a global fight for human rights, equality, and justice. International solidarity movements played a critical role in maintaining pressure on the regime. Today, the Palestinian struggle for freedom has galvanized a new generation of activists. From Black Lives Matter activists in the United States to Dalit rights activists in India to indigenous land defenders in Canada, people are recognizing the interconnectedness of struggles against oppression. Solidarity knows no bounds. The fight against apartheid is a shared struggle for a more just and equitable world. The global arms trade. The stench of hypocrisy hangs heavy in the air. Nations that once condemned apartheid now turn a blind eye to Israel's crimes. For the global arms trade, profit trumps principle. The suffering of the oppressed is simply the cost of doing business. The weapons used to enforce apartheid and suppress dissent flow from factories and countries that claim to uphold democracy. Their deadly cargo shipped across borders, from the United States to European countries. The list of nations complicit in arming apartheid regimes is long and shameful. The global arms trade is a moral stain on humanity. As long as weapons flow to oppressive regimes, the cycle of violence and oppression will continue. Section 2. Silence is consent. The political cover-up. In the corridors of power where geopolitical interests trump moral imperatives, silence often speaks louder than words. The international community's response to apartheid, both in South Africa and in Israel-Palestine, has been marked by a deafening silence, a shameful reluctance to confront powerful allies and challenge the status quo. For decades, the apartheid regime in South Africa enjoyed the tacit support of many Western governments, who saw the country as a bulwark against communism in the region. Despite mounting evidence of human rights abuses, these governments turned a blind eye to the plight of Black South Africans, providing diplomatic cover, economic aid, and even military assistance to the apartheid state. Today, Israel, despite its ongoing occupation of Palestinian territories and its systematic discrimination against Palestinians, continues to receive unwavering support from the United States, its most powerful ally. The U.S. government provides billions of dollars in military aid to Israel each year, blocks UN resolutions critical of Israel, and shields Israel from international pressure to end its occupation. This political cover-up, fueled by a combination of strategic interests, ideological blind spots, and a failure of moral leadership, has allowed apartheid regimes to operate with impunity, perpetuating the cycle of violence and oppression. Silence, in the face of such injustice, is not neutrality, it is complicity. Section 3. The allure of apartheid's success, emulating a model. The allure of a seemingly successful model of oppression has proven difficult to resist. Tactics honed in apartheid South Africa find a receptive audience among authoritarian regimes. The lessons of apartheid have found new life in the 21st century, adapted to suit the needs of new oppressors. From surveillance technologies and crowd control methods to the construction of walls and barriers, the tools of apartheid have proven tragically adaptable. Section 4. Investing in injustice. The economic underpinnings. Behind the barbed wire fences, the watchtowers, and the pronouncements of security concerns lies a more prosaic reality: the pursuit of profit. Apartheid in both South Africa and Israel-Palestine has always been as much about economics as it is about race, a system designed to benefit a privileged few at the expense of the many. During apartheid, international corporations flocked to South Africa, lured by the promise of cheap labor, abundant resources, and a government eager to accommodate their needs. These corporations, blinded by greed and a callous disregard for human rights, became complicit in the apartheid system, providing investment, technology, and legitimacy to a regime built on racial exploitation. Today, the situation in Israel-Palestine follows a disturbingly similar pattern. International companies continue to operate in Israeli settlements, profiting from the exploitation of Palestinian land, labor, and resources. These settlements, deemed illegal under international law, are a major obstacle to peace and a source of ongoing human rights violations. The economic underpinnings of apartheid are often overlooked, but they are essential to understanding the persistence of these oppressive systems. As long as companies and individuals continue to profit from injustice, the incentive to maintain the status quo will remain strong, and the struggle for freedom and equality will be that much harder. Section 5. Breaking the chains of complicity from awareness to action. The fight against apartheid does not end with the dismantling of laws and the toppling of regimes. Breaking the chains of complicity demands a collective awakening. Awareness is the first step. Education must lead to action and hold our elected officials accountable. Most importantly, we must find our voices and use them to speak out against injustice and demand a world where all people are treated with dignity, equality, and respect. The weight of history can feel heavy, a chronicle of oppression and conflict, but it's also a story of courage and resilience. The dismantling of apartheid in South Africa stands as a testament to collective action. The struggle for justice in Palestine continues, but the lessons of South Africa offer hope. The path forward will be long, but resilience and commitment will lead to a future free from apartheid. From isolation to global solidarity, the power of collective action. The fight against apartheid, both in South Africa and in Palestine, transcends boundaries and ideologies, united by a shared belief in dignity and the right to freedom. The international boycott and sanctions movement isolated the regime and forced negotiations. Voices worldwide demanded an end to apartheid. Today, the Palestinian rights movement draws strength from this legacy. From BDS to grassroots efforts, people challenge policies and demand accountability. The fight against apartheid reminds us we are not alone. Join hands across borders to create a world of dignity, equality, and peace. A new generation rises carrying the torch of freedom, inheriting the legacy of struggle and resilience, shaped by social media, climate urgency, and social justice. They understand the ongoing struggle demands their action, seeing connections between global justice movements, recognizing that injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere, mobilizing and organizing with digital tools, building global movements for change, demanding accountability and bold solutions. Their energy and commitment offer hope for a just future. Reimagining a world without apartheid, a call to action. Dismantling apartheid requires more than removing barriers and laws. It demands a shift in consciousness and a commitment to justice and equality. Education is the cornerstone of this transformation. We must educate ourselves about the history and legacies of apartheid and understand the interconnectedness of social justice movements. Dialogue and engagement are essential. We must create spaces for meaningful conversations and build bridges of understanding. Reject division and embrace human connection and collaboration. Building a world without apartheid requires addressing systemic inequalities. Commit to economic justice and ensure access to opportunities for all. Reject dehumanizing ideologies and embrace equality, justice, and human dignity. The journey is long and challenging, but we must take it together. The future of humanity depends on it. Amplifying voices demanding justice. The fight against apartheid is not a spectator sport. Educate yourself about apartheid. Read, watch, follow activists. Speak out against injustice. Write to officials, share on social media, support organizations dismantling apartheid, make conscious consumer choices, get involved in your community. Every voice matters, every action counts. Create a world where apartheid is a distant memory.